This video, I want to appreciate one person, and there'll be others along the way. And the second time I have to cut this video because apparently I was out of space, and I have an attitude. I'm tired of stuff. I'm tired of some of the things that, some of the people that I have to deal with, some of their behavior. You know, I've got a real bad back issue, herniated disc in two places, in the bottom of my back. I've got brain damage that most people don't know about. It's not real easy for me to get around. And, you know, being persecuted and oppressed and everything, and deliberately inconvenienced and everything. I mean, that's all glorious. That's for Elohim's glory. It's good that we suffer for Him. It's an honorable thing. But I'm tired. And it doesn't mean you just let people treat you like a dirtbag or treat you like a piece of garbage everywhere you go. You know what I'm saying? And it's good to be tired of stuff, you know, to finally to admit that things have to change. Yesterday was a day where I went out in the world, simply got dressed up and went out just to offend, just to be an offender. Excuse me. Just to be led in the spirit and go out to offend. Something I could never do when I was younger. I used to be very calculative, and the enemy knew where I was going to be at every turn. Yesterday was not one of those days. Yesterday was a day where I made a lot of enemies. Well, they're my enemies to begin with. I just flipped the lid. I just blew their cover is all I did. I like doing it. Especially when you go into banks and stuff like that, and you got a bunch of young girls in there, a bunch of bubblegum chewing girls that, you know, get paid $9, $10, $11 an hour, and we the patrons are paying the car payments and things like that, and then they're rude to us. You know, it's like, and I'm not talking about a specific incident or anything like that. The bottom line is I have to forgive them. Okay, I don't want to. It hurts, but that's what Elohim asks us to do. I'm not God. Okay, Maybe he didn't want to forgive me either. How's that? And even today, do I have any right not to forgive them? And then if I can't even forgive myself, who am I? Am I better than God? Is my judgment greater than His? Think about that. One young girl, she was a Chinese exchange student that I put in the praise. I'm going to put in the praise bank. And not many people go in the praise bank in my book, because not many people are worth praising. And you have to be careful, and it's me too. When you start, I was taught, don't put people on pedestals because they'll let you down. And it's the same thing if you did it to me. You're going to be disillusioned. I'm going to let you down. As far as having an attitude, jumping around a little bit, you know, I'm almost 50 right now, and I don't see that I have very far to go. You know, John the Baptist, he studied for like 30 years or something in the wilderness, and his ministry lasted 6 months before they took his head off. Yeshua studied for 30 years, and his ministry lasted like 3 years or so. And his family would taunt him. They'd say, well, if you're this big shot, if you're this son of God that you say you are, and you can do all these things, why don't you go, you're this big rabbi, why don't you go down into Jerusalem during the Feast of Tabernacles and tell everybody who you are? Anybody who has got, you know, something going for him like you say you do, they want everybody to know about it. And Yeshua said something to them that his own family, he said, your time isn't come. You can do whatever you want. He said, the world doesn't hate you, but it hates my guts, because I bear witness against it that its works are wicked. Yesterday when I went into town with an attitude, just to have an attitude, just to be an offender, that's what I did through my behavior. People don't, you know, necessarily have to wear a cross around your neck for people to recognize that you're a Christian or a believer. I don't like the word Christian, but as a believer, they're spirits now, you know. People would recognize, demons would recognize who Yeshua was, and they would freak out, and they would say, you know, "Oh, thou Son of the Most High, have you come to torment us before our time?" And, you know, they would reveal themselves because they were scared. And, you know, there was one time, there was this young girl, she was being taunted by the devil. Her neighbors were chanting garbage and stuff, scaring the daylights out of the woman. I said, "The devil wants you to be afraid." And she went, Are you an angel?" I said, no, I don't think so. And I could get carried away with that. I could say, wow, she thinks quite highly of me there. I could use that, you know. And she came to me more, and she's asking questions. This was early in my Christianity, and I didn't have any more words for her. She's asking me, how can I be forgiven for stuff? And like, it's not my job. I just to share with her that word that I had, maybe that was enough, and hopefully she's a stronger believer today because of it. But I've been in situations where other people have been sent to me. I knew that they were sent to me. They didn't know what was going on, so that they could share something helpful with me. So here it is, they're going through, I don't know, it probably wasn't very easy for them to get in the situation where they did help me, but they didn't intend to. They weren't there to help me, but what they said made all the difference in the world. And I can't follow them and praise them because they didn't know they did it. It's just part of their job. So you don't want to get carried away with praising people. So, and it's not very often that I do praise people, and then when I do find someone worthy of praise, I stick with them. Not very many of them. I could probably count them on maybe both hands, if that. There's one young lady, exchange student, and I'm moving in with them. It's like a duplex complex type of thing where there's a few rooms rented out in this place, and you've got a communal living area, and you've got a communal kitchen, and you've got your own private rooms with locks on them. And these young girls, I don't know, 16, 18 years old, two of them, when I started hauling my books up a flight of stairs to move in the first day, the first thing that these young ladies did is this. They stood at their feet, and they put their hands back, and they introduced themselves, and they asked me if they could help me haul my things in. But my boxes were too heavy for young girls, and it was in our culture, it was inappropriate because nobody has that kind of, no American would ask anything like that. I'll tell you a little bit about their culture, a little bit about how appreciative they are. One young lady, her name was Anne. Anne is the English, that's what she used to tell people. Her name is actually Wen, W-E-N, Wen, Anne. So Anne is English, so people can understand it. Real smart young lady, very, very wise young lady. Her dad would be proud of her. I hope he is. But this young lady, she was such a high achiever, and the Chinese are they're very into their pedigrees, and they start, training their kids on violins and stuff when they're little because they want them to be high achievers. They're very big on that. And this young lady is one of them. She's a little princess. And she would occupy most the day room as evening fell most nights. And the reason why she did that was to give her roommate space. She was wise young lady. And I think there were 4 of them all together. There was a duplex. On the other side, there was a couple other exchange students that I think came with them. And so she's giving this other woman space while she sits up in a chair. She doesn't realize how dark it's getting. Messing around with her phone, on the internet or whatever. And So we started doing Bible studies, and somebody gave her a Bible. She got an English Bible here. She can hardly speak English, and we're studying the Bible enough that she can, understand what's going on. I know I'd get carried away. Her eyes would kind of glaze over sometimes because she couldn't quite understand what I was saying. But this young lady would force herself in situations where she wouldn't, like the other girls, they all rehearse everything that they want to say, and they kind of rehearse the transaction that they're going to say with an English-speaking person that they're not really good at. But she would deliberately force herself into situations where she didn't understand what was going on, so she would have to learn how. And the other girls won't do that. They're all hiding in their rooms, and they won't come out and do that kind of thing. She was like just a young girl. She was just, that kind of strength is, wow, impressive. She can get around the world. She's getting around the world, and the other girls probably rely on her to get them around. But they have all the same resources she has. She just does more with it. We're studying the Bible. We're studying Hebrew words. Studying Hebrew. And, I can understand the old Hebrew better than the new Hebrew. The new Hebrew has the punctuation, and it has, the grammar added and everything. But the old Hebrew, to really appreciate each letter, why does this letter sound the way it does with this letter? It makes a sh sound. Oh, sh. It means, it's very clean language. It's the language that will be restored. Eventually, all the other languages are chaotic, nonsensical garbage. That's why people are so confused, especially if they go through public education. I was never a good speller, not on demand, like when I was a kid. Spelling bees, and partly because so many English words sound so alike, but they're dissimilar in meaning. It was just too confusing. I am a decent speller. I can spell well if I sit down and figure it out. That's just English garbage. The Hebrew is very clean, very pure. I can't say enough about, I'm just barely getting into it. I can't say enough about how liberating it is to actually read clean, pure, understandable words. They're healthful. It's like the difference of eating Wonder Bread and really, really good bread. Or, it's like typically the kind of people, the kind of Christianity that people are getting today from preachers and teachers is, I liken it to that tinsel shit that you put around a Christmas tree and chew on that and try to digest that and nourish your body with that. But this young lady, she would ask me, "What do you do in your room?" There's a light on in there. I'm at my desk. It's quiet, or whatever I use for a desk. I said, "I don't know. A lot of reading and thinking." She said, "Thinking? Thinking?" It's kind of like a ridiculing. Thinking? And then she thought to herself, "Oh, thinking." Because if you have any body of knowledge, you have to be able to arrange your mind. People don't realize that thinking is work. And I have to enforce thinking time. And that's part of the reason why I'm upset about my back and I'm upset about having brain damage, because people don't understand what it takes me to get around. And they're oppressing me, and they're deliberately inconveniencing me and robbing me because of it. I learned that it takes a blind person years of training just to learn how to walk around a block. Imagine having brain damage. You have an impaired brain, and you have to calculate everything that you do. Yesterday was not one of those calculation days. Yesterday was a spirit day. I went out to offend, and I did a good job offending people. Not just going out deliberately trying to be a jerk. What happens is, getting back to, you don't have to wear a cross for people to identify. Their spirits know. Those who hear your words, that's because that's the spirit of Elohim. Those who will not hear your words, that's how you test the spirit of error, the spirit of lies, the spirit of the devil. It's very easy to determine who is who there. They don't really realize what they're doing. Like maybe the person who's sent to give me an encouraging word, or me sent to someone to give someone an encouraging word. I didn't realize really my placement there. I had other issues going on, other things to worry about. But what they start doing is they start subtly inconvenience you. They hate you. They hate God, and they think that if they can hurt you, they can hurt Him. It's a compliment, actually. It's a compliment. It's a good job to have. Here's, people see my life. They saw when I was more of a calculative person. They'd see I go to the gym 3 times a week, and then I run the 3 days in between. I see other people have the exact same kind of schedule, which is nothing wrong with that. It's great. That's how you get things done. But they think that I'm on like some kind of vacation. They think it's easy for me. Well, I wouldn't be good. If I didn't exercise, I wouldn't be getting out of bed. I couldn't get out of bed. Okay, and I've got long-term injuries that aren't going to stop. They're not going to go away. But if somebody who is jealous of me, jealousy is wanting what other people have. Envy is not wanting other people to have what they have. It's usually envy in my case. But anybody who is jealous of what they see, when you do something for a long time, you start making it look easy. You're good at it, so you make it look easy. But if they put themselves in my shoes for one day, they would abort that operation. They would say, "Oh, I didn't realize this was what it was. This is too much work. I can't do this." I don't eat processed food. I work all my food. I've even ground down wheat, living outdoors, ground it down with a rock. Maybe I'd get a cup full of flour tooth-breaking flour before dark. Not because if I didn't have to, I wouldn't. But I want to do the work that other people aren't willing to do. Say, my father, he didn't keep himself in shape. He wound up with a big pot belly and wearing a t-shirt, and he used to pose with his belly sticking out and his mouth pursed, just like a pregnant man or something. I was like, Dad. And I told myself, people would ask me, old people in their 70s, would ask me in a gym, "Wow, you got to work out today. What inspires you?" And they don't realize that they're a 70-year-old man in a gym. That's unusual. So what I would tell them is that I told myself I wanted to be in better shape than my dad, and he wore shoes that he didn't have to lace because he was too lazy to bend over and lace them. So me, I can barely tie my left shoe today, and it's not going to excuse me to buy deck shoes or go Velcro or something like that. I'm still tying my shoes. It's not easy. Somebody yesterday at a cafe, they did compliment me, and we're talking about praising people, and it's good. Jumping around a little bit. The Bible says that to think on honorable things, and think on righteous things, and think of things excellent and praiseworthy. There are not often people, like I said, I come across that are worth praising. One gentleman yesterday, he saw me just from across the room in a cafe. He said, "Man, you look sharp." He said, "Are you into sales or something?" No sales of any kind. And he said, and he was sitting there with his woman, and I was, they were reading the paper very comfortably, sharing sections, and I was maybe a little jealous. Hmm. Of the woman? No. Of that relationship. It was, they had something good going on there, you know. I appreciated that. And she went to the bathroom and he said, yes, he started talking. And he said that he used to work in General Electric, and he said that they insisted in that company that you keep your shoes shined, that that's one of the things that they were insistent on you um, keeping up on. And I told him that, I had a boss one time that told me that I would probably appreciate it out in New England. He said out there on the East Coast, he said, women wear like high heels to go get a gallon of milk. And he told me that the worst he'd ever seen was in Indiana, where people just wear their sweatpants everywhere they go. But it was a nice compliment that he gave me, and out of all, I didn't offend everybody that I saw yesterday. I did. Hopefully, I helped some people out in the compliment, in the praise that somebody did me. Right? How's that? And even if they didn't, it's not going to stop me from. It's not going to cause me to compromise. This is from the website Avalar, and it takes a genius to know a genius, okay? And I've been studying Rex Stout because his characters in his novels are genius. And it takes a genius, and the characteristics of the genius are how I recognize them. And I noticed that I noticed that his characters, they do the same kinds of things I do, like pursing their lips, they have attitudes, they're insistent, they're demanding, peering with their eyes, things like that, and only a genius would know. So I started studying Rex Stout. What's Rex Stout all about? And this is from Avalar, and this is quoted by J. McAleer. This is the standard biography. Rex Stout cultivated hundreds of varieties of irises and daylilies. Stout was, in part, descended from Quakers on both sides of his family for at least 5 generations. This McAleer catalogs in excruciating and disorganized detail. My mouth is nice and dry. A paean to the primacy of the mind, proof that thought is action. Emily, Stout's maternal grandmother, McNeil Todhunter, plump and lazy in her special chair, addicted to flowers, dictionaries, and atlases, an omnivorous reader, depended upon by her large family to adjudicate all problems. Of course, this is utter nonsense, a very, very common but foolish and dangerous notion that thinking is not work. If you have a body of knowledge going on, you have to be able to arrange your mind. And so, for instance, this gentleman that I was investigating, when I realized that he was the person that I was investigating, that I was looking for, a killer, I went home that night. I talked to this gentleman for 6 hours, and it was midnight before I made it back to my apartment that I was being evicted from. And I walked in, and I've got the classical music on low, background usually on, and then things started not making sense, because after I got into my space where everything had its proper arrangement, then my mind started to work, and I realized the things that this gentleman were telling me were not making sense. And I stood up. I stood on my feet the entire night, pacing the floor, wringing my hands, and I was like that for 3 days before I went in to give my statement to the police. And the police, the detectives, the proper detectives handling the case couldn't be reached for the weekend. I can't afford to take weekends off. My brain doesn't work like that. That's why they're not catching the criminals that I'm catching. That's why they didn't catch this guy. I can't afford to take time off, and it's the reason why I took up the case it's the very reason I took it up. I wanted to see if I could crack it. And it wasn't me. It was Elohim that sent me. It's in the favor of the victim's family, and I hope they know that someday. Anyway, I'm getting real tired of stuff, and I'm not gonna throw that all on you, and I don't want to get carried away with praising people. I certainly don't want anyone to get carried away with praising me, because you will be disillusioned. If you saw my behavior today, if you saw what I going on yesterday and stuff like that, you would, hopefully it puts people at ease, and I think that's why a lot of upper class people like my work, is because I help them to mitigate some of the anger, some of the anger issues, some of the perfections. I help them to relax, to show them that some things aren't worth getting bent out of shape over. It's, I suppose everyone's fearing for their life, that they're going to die. That's the devil's trick right there. He wants everybody to be afraid of what's going to happen to me, how I'm going to die. He flaunts that. That's what he scares people with. He tried that with Yeshua. Yeshua said, "This is what I think of your death and your fear," and he turned the tables right upside down on that guy. And that's our job. That's what we do now. So, be encouraged. Be encouraged. Be encouraged by my attitude. And the Chinese, by the way, they have attitudes too. So the closer that I got to this young girl and her friend, the more cruel things got. Because they have attitudes too. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the price that you pay in relationships. Let's say, like Laura Ingalls Wilder, she didn't want to be close to people because she was probably a genius. Somebody said that she was probably an untutored genius. That's a very brief, nice description of probably Laura Ingalls Wilder in totality. Her husband, this young man, was a prince to her. I thought that he was too good for her. I thought she was cruel to the guy. I don't know the whole story, but he married her. The man was a prince. He was a prince to her, as far as the books go. And maybe she did realize that she was kind of cruel to him. But unfortunately, every relationship that I've got in, and I've dated geniuses, they're cruel. Their families are cruel, and guess what? Me too. So keep those things in mind, but be encouraged. Be encouraged by my attitude. Be encouraged by my bad back. Be encouraged by my brain damage. Be encouraged by my offending people. Hallelujah.